It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, you can see I have Milton Bartley, the CEO and founder of ImageQuest LLC, an IT services and security firm based in Nashville, Tennessee. He's graced the presence of my Sharp Interactive board. Milton, it's fantastic having you on the end of the day with Ray. It's been a while. But we have this new vulnerability going on, a new cyber problem, and I want to talk to you about that a little bit. But, you know, Milton, it's been a treacherous year for cyber attacks and cyber crisis and crime. And I know they're catching some of these bad actors, but at the same time, it seems as soon as they catch one, another one pops up, and now we're dealing with Log4j Vulnerability. So let's start out of the box, and let's tell me what you know about that, and what are you doing at ImageQuest to help your customers?
Absolutely. Well, first, Ray, thanks so much for having me on today. Great to see you. Great to talk to you and your audience. So Log4j simply is a vulnerability, and Apache Log4j is a piece of software I think it's one of the most ubiquitous pieces of applicational software in the world of basically web-based computing. So, tons of developers use this logging application to bake that code into their system. So it's installed all over the world on systems that we wouldn't even think of. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny. So I had a conversation with a couple of folks over the weekend when this first came out. And, a couple of pretty smart people, I'd reach out to them and say, hey, what are you doing about Log4j? And I'd get a response like, hey, we don't run Apache software, so it doesn't affect us. And I'm like, no, it absolutely affects you. It's everywhere. And then they kind of read an article or two and come back and say, oh, yeah, okay, well, here's what we're going to do about it.
Well, here's a question for you. I'm not the tech guy, you know that. But if I'm using open architecture and I'm a developer, or I think about some of my friends even in the document imaging channel that might have software platforms that they're using with their dealers, and maybe they're pulling information from our friends over at ECI is a good example. Does this affect them?
Oh, it absolutely does. So I'll speak to one I know very specifically. So let's talk ConnectWise for a second. And by the way, ConnectWise has done a phenomenal job of communicating about this, really starting on Friday of last week and continuing today. They don't necessarily have the Log4j application baked into all of their different applications, but they have third-party plugins, and they have other pieces of software that talk to or touch, or the dealer, those of us who use the software may have that. And so they were really good at saying, hey, just because we don't have it here doesn't mean that you shouldn't check there. Okay. And they did a nice job actually of turning things off on Saturday until they could validate that they were good, and then they would spin them back up and turn them on, and they communicated effectively throughout that entire process.
Where is the world at today with this? This happened on the 11th, I believe, of December. So, what can you update us?
So I think it actually was released on the 24th. I think it started to get some popularity, on the 9th of December, I think is when it kind of hit the major news. And so on Friday the 10th, some vendors like, the Sentinel Ones of the world, the Arctic Wolves of the world, the Carbon Blacks of the world, the CrowdStrikes of the world all came out and said, hey, here it is. We know about it. We've already released a fix. On our side, it's not fixed per se. We've released an update to allow us to detect and block and stop this if you're using our software. So kudos to those vendors, and we use some of those vendors. So many of our clients were really protected, isn't the right word, but we knew about things immediately on Friday if we needed to deal with it. But where we are today, I think we went through a weekend of apathy with a lot of folks. I think there were a lot of tech companies out there over the weekend that kind of looked at it and thought, like my friend that I just mentioned, oh, I don't run Apache. This doesn't affect us. Or maybe they thought it would affect them, but they'll deal with it on Monday morning. I don't think the world of tech really woke up, other than big tech, like the Apples and Google of the world, until maybe Monday afternoon. And I think where we are today is we're still in mile one of a marathon. We don't know where this is going to lead us, I think, over the next several weeks and days. But I'm reading in lots of places around the world that this probably is bigger than SolarWinds when you get down to it, based upon the reach and the impact it might have.
Well, see, that's interesting to me. So if you're, we talked a long time ago, and it might have been Gary Pica that coined this phrase, and I share it with you, and it's kind of your policy. But, we can't be reactive. We have to assume there's a breach. And so I know ImageQuest, runs their company that you assume that all your customers are breached, and then you work to mitigate those breaches. So how do you tell if your MSP has that mindset? Because I'm thinking, and I don't want to pick on my friends in the channel, but there's a lot of IT companies that have a very, very low operational maturity level, as Paul Dipple would define that. And if they just assume, hey, we don't use these softwares, so we don't have to worry about telling our customers, when in fact their customers could have vendors that are using these open architecture type.
Yeah.
So, what are the talk tracks that they should be saying to their customers?
Yeah, great question, Ray. I mean, I can only speak to really how we did it, and I've shared information with some of my peers, some other CEOs of tech companies around the country over the last several days, and kind of a general school of thought of how we're all reacting to this. I'd say first and foremost, I mean, we had people working through the weekend on it, so that's a telltale sign. If you were thinking we'll deal with this on Monday morning, that's probably the first sign that you're not really thinking security first. I mean, we had people at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning in touch with customers, making sure, especially some of our larger customers who have in-house IT and we co-source with them, making sure that they're patching, making sure that they're aware, making sure that they're evaluating. We spent a lot of time really starting Saturday afternoon reaching out to vendors on behalf of our clients. So especially some of our financial services clients, making sure that critical vendors, the core processors, the Jack Henrys, the CSIs, the FISs and the Fiservs of the world and others, making sure that they were doing what they were supposed to be doing, making sure they had an announcement. For most of these big companies or tech companies, regardless of their size, if they know what they're doing, they had a statement pretty early on. Hey, here's what we're doing. Here's the steps we've taken. Here's our recommendations. Hey, we're investigating, at least letting you know that they're aware of it. So I think us as an MSP or an MSSP, having those conversations with our clients and on behalf of our clients over the weekend, I think is a telltale sign. I mean, I was on calls with banking clients, literally on conference calls on Saturday evening and on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon with their teams, making sure that people were doing the right things, patching and updating things that need to be patched and updated.
Milton, I've been a little bit critical of some of the master service providers in the space, or I believe that you should control a lot of this yourself, which you guys do at ImageQuest. But, as we shift more into really security services, I mean, it's hard for me to define an IT company as a managed service provider without them being really a managed security services provider, that some IT stuff goes on top of that. But it has to be security first driven. And I hear in the marketplace about, people with ridiculous, EBITDAs as an example. And that just leads me to believe that they're not investing the right skill set. So could you and this is really just for my friends that are transitioning from the print sector into IT services, that more broader deliverable. Can you kind of share with us the difference in investments when you first started as just really an IT services company, kind of to where you are today around security and the increase in cost to the company based on that?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about the increase in cost for sure. So we've seen it in both human capital and in tool set over the last 6 to 12 months, 18 months, really. So, just kind of go back in time, 10 years, our investments at the time were like, hey, we need a new help desk person. We need an RMM. We need a remote control system, whatever that may be. Just basic blocking and tackling. We need an antivirus solution. You look to today, the conversations that we're having, first we hired a CISO last year, a true, CISO with all the right initials after his name. Of course, he came from enterprise, came from Deloitte, brought with him a whole different mindset of, what does good look like? And so he's helped us figure out that, those tool sets that we were dealing with for the most part are important. They're critical to manage your IT business, but they're not relative or relevant, I should say, in the security world. So he's helped us bring on just a whole different set of tool sets, whether it's alerting, whether it is tracking, whether it is vulnerability, tracking, remediation. That's a big one. I mean, we're doing vulnerability, which is what the Log4j is. If you're following the Log4j kind of workflow, you're finding and remediating that vulnerability. That's what it is. But doing that on a consistent basis across our clients, across industries. So just bringing that awareness and that tool set. And then the other piece of that is the talent required to do that, right? You can't hire a $25 an hour help desk tech and then expect them in 6 months to be doing vulnerability remediation successfully on the InfoSec side. So hiring good InfoSec talent, getting them the right training to go with those tools. I mean, it's an expensive endeavor, and we have made tons of investments this year into that. And we've watched, our cost of service increase pretty dramatically really this year because of that. But, the right client recognizes the need for that and is willing to pay for those services. And that's what we're finding.
Plus, you do a lot of compliance assessments that are fee-based, which allows you to charge more money in that aspect too. So what you invest today, you can actually scale that up to create more.
Yeah, and I think I guess another change, Ray, and I'm still helping my investment partners understand this mindset shift. So the chicken and the egg, right? So if you assign one to the other, so if you say the chicken is the revenue and the egg is the support, we used to kind of stretch our support resources until the revenue justified, and then we would stretch support revenue. And we've shifted that mindset, and we've had to in the last year, because I can't tell a client that we didn't do a good job of protecting you from this vulnerability because we were trying to see how far we could stretch our support dollars before we went and hired new people, right?
Yeah.
So now we're hiring before the need gets there and then getting the revenue afterwards. It's a little bit of reverse than what we used to have. And, from a business model perspective, you can argue which is right. I'm not going to get into an argument with you about it. I believe in my heart that this is the right way to do it. I can't go to my large regulated clients and say, hey, go ahead and pay us for this, and then we'll go hire the people and figure out how to do it. We want to come to them with the knowledge and with the tools and with the people and with the talent and say, we're ready to take this for you today.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of my audience knows, but not a lot of them do. But Milton has a $10 million IT services company with how many customers you got now? 75 customers.
Yeah, 75 to 80 customers in that range.
So his revenue for services per customer is extremely high from what you might see in the marketplace. And and by the way, Milton, in talking through that, I want to thank you because Milton gave me some information on his company that I was able to share at the BTA meeting in Asheville with our friends about the transition from print to IT and what great looks like. So, a lot of the audience appreciated that. So on behalf of them, I want to thank you for that. And I look forward to, our conversations all the time because you're a great tool to help me learn what's going on in the marketplace continuously. But Milton, times are changing drastically, and I'm so afraid because I see people building IT services companies the same way we were doing it, 8-9 years ago. I mean, I've been gone from you for 5 years, so so 7 years ago when I started with you, they're trying to do the same thing today, and it's like ridiculous. Or we're seeing conversations to our friends that are based on the same language that they were using 7-8 years ago, and how is that even possible? So anytime I can bring you on, I always want to do that because I think you're a breath of fresh air, and it's kind of what people need to aspire to be. You need to aspire to the greatness, not to the worst part of it. Is there anything out there that you want to share, some wisdom for my friends?
I don't know about any wisdom as we enter the holiday season. I will just say it's been a crazy week with this Log4j. I mean, we literally have had a team of people working. We have people working Saturday and Sunday, and then we've had people working around the clock 24 hours a day since Monday morning. We do have, we have some engineering talent, our employees overseas. They're not contractors. And they have been working, they're our night shift anyway, which is a day shift for them. But we've been literally working around the clock. I'll give Datto a little credit here. And there's a lot of great tools out there. Arctic Wolf also has a great tool. But Datto released a great tool on Monday for all of, I guess, for the whole world, frankly. But if you're an MS Datto client, you knew about it instantly. And we've used their tool to scan every client environment we have. Not whether or not they use Datto is irrelevant. Their tool has done a great job of helping us figure out, was there a potential issue inside a client network because of Log4j that we need to reprioritize and take action on. So really appreciate their tool. And we really appreciate all of our vendors stepping up. I think, SentinelOne, I mentioned, Arctic Wolf are two vendors we rely heavily on. They had great information for us as early as 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And then ConnectWise, as I said, has done a nice job of keeping people up to date on what they're doing. I'll say this, we run in ConnectWise's cloud, and this isn't a ConnectWise cloud infomercial for you, but I will say, we were on premises until this summer, and we moved to their cloud in the July, August timeframe.
Okay.
That really helped us on Saturday because when we woke up on Saturday and we knew we had to roll up our sleeves and get busy, we didn't have to use that time checking and fixing our own things. We just had to rely on ConnectWise telling us, hey, the cloud is good. We've taken care of everything we need to be taken care of, or we turn it off. So it can't be an issue to you. So we didn't lose valuable time that we could be addressing client needs and client issues by trying to fix our own stuff. So I'll give a little kudos there to my CTO and his team for making that decision last year and for us getting that done this summer.
Well, you know what, Milton, it does, whether it's ConnectWise Cloud or our friends over at ECIE Automate Cloud, people need to take the cloud serious. So you gave a commercial for the cloud in general, which I appreciate, because it just amazes to me that people want to keep this stuff on premise in this day and age, especially with all these, vulnerabilities that are out there with the crooks anyway. So,
right.
It's crazy. Milton, I want to have you back on again. Maybe in the beginning of the year, I want to recap of your whole year, like we did last year. I think it's interesting for our friends to see someone really progress in the way you are. And it's always great having you on, because Milton, everybody who watches me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.